You're now watching Wayback Wednesday, sponsored by Davenport Auto Park, the ride of your life. And also sponsored by Flores Glass, serving the area since 1977 with residential and commercial work.
Episode of Wayback Wednesday. I'm Randy Adcock. So glad you could be with us. I want to start the night off by giving out a big thank you, first of all, to Eric Dawson for bringing this great book by and letting me borrow it for a few days. And now I'm on the hunt. If any of you have a copy of this book anywhere, it's actually, let me turn my phone into mute. It's actually entitled Rocky Mount Fire Department Centennial, 1896 to 1996. It's a great little collection of stories and pictures about the Rocky Mount Fire Department from its earliest beginnings up until 1996 when the book was published. I understand that there's been another book published shortly after this one. It's a little more modern. But anyway, I've not had it but a day, been kind of browsing through it in my spare time, which I haven't had a whole lot of today. But in any case, I'd love to get a copy for myself to put to my book collection in my office. So if anybody's got one, he's laying around, if you just don't care about it anymore, let me know. You can call this station 407-1111, of course, is our number here. Or you can call me directly at 252-883-1123. I'm going to share some of the pictures from this book on another show. I had already prepared most of tonight's show before I got my hands on this book. So I'm scanning some of the pictures as I find them in here, and so probably next week's show I'll share some of the pictures that are in this book with you, the viewing audience. But again, if anyone's got one of these Rocky Mount Fire Department book from 1896 to 1996, 100 years of Rocky Mount Fire Department, I'd love to have a copy. So okay, tonight, well, let me back up a minute. If you remember back, oh God, it's been probably about a month ago now, I shared with you a newspaper clipping from, well, two actually, one from 1896 and one from 1905. Both were referencing a Deutsch Academy. And so that kind of put a little bug ticking in my mind, wonder where it was, what I could find out about it. So I kind of got on the hunt then. It's been literally almost a month ago now that I started searching and trying to see what I could find out about the Deutsch Academy. And I uncovered a few things about the little community and town, in fact, of Deutsches that I didn't know. And so, of course, everyone knows about the biggest thing in Deutsches today is Smith's Red and White. And I found some new history about that. Going to show you some pictures of the original Smith's Red and White and some information about that original Smith's Red and White building that I didn't know until very recently. So, you know, the first thing about Deutsches, when I was growing up, I always wondered what a Deutsch was. I didn't know if it was some kind of plant, a tree maybe, or some kind of animal. I just couldn't figure out how the name Deutsches came to be. And it was only very recently, it was in the last year or two, I guess, that I came across a man named William Deutsch, who built the house that now sits at the intersection of Halifax Road and Highway 43, just before you get to the bridge over I-95. Ironically, the locals for many, many years refer to that same house as the John F. Griffin home place. And that's because in 1829, I think it was, Mr. John H. Griffin bought that property after it exchanged hands several times from the time Mr. Deutsch built it in roughly 1800. There's some discrepancies about when the house was built. I've seen some articles that reference it was built 1800. I've seen others that state it was built as late as 1803. My guess is it probably took somewhere between 2 and 3 years to build it anyway. But in any case, Mr. William Deutsch built the house. He died in 1829, I think, and then over the next several years, the house changed hands several times. And he died earlier than that, I think. But anyway, long story short, John H. Griffin got the house, and then later years, I think his son, John F. Griffin, obtained the house. So for many in the Deutsches community in Red Oak area up there, in fact, that's always been referred to as a John F. Griffin home place. But as I said, it was actually built by Mr. William Deutsch sometime in the late 1700s, early 1800s. So first thing I want to do is kind of share a little bit of information with you about the house that I found online. It says Dortch House is a historic home located in Dortches, North Carolina, Nash County. It was built around 1800 by William Dortch and is a federal-style frame dwelling that consists of a 2-story, 3-bay main block covered by a gable roof and 1-story rear wing. It is sheathed in weatherboard and features a 1-story full-width front porch and Palladian windows. The 1-story full-width front porch was added by the Griffin family sometime before the 1920s. That porch, by the way, is now gone, and it needed to go to bring back the historical accuracy of the home, but I'll get to that in a minute. It says a 1-bay portico with columns was the original porch to the house. The back section of the house was a freestanding federal farmhouse that was close by the house. It was built around 1779. There was a log kitchen out back of the Dortch house which burned down, unsure of the date it says here. At that time, the federal farmhouse was moved up to the Dortch house and connected. Sometime in the late 1940s, early 50s, the family who owned the house remodeled the entire back section of the house using a mix of new and old timber. I actually read somewhere where they completely disassembled that addition to the house that was added there to the house after it was built. They disassembled it and then rebuilt it all, used most of the same original pieces and boards and so forth, but had to put some new ones in there to replace some damaged boards. Anyway, it goes on to say the house sits on Halifax Road at the old Red Oak Road. The old Halifax Road was an old stagecoach road that ran from near Elm City, North Carolina, and Halifax, North Carolina. And so at one time, there was a stagecoach there. There was what was called an ordinary. An ordinary was a term prior to the term tavern or inn. And so there was for many, many years, that was a stop on a very old road that ran for many miles up and down between Elm City and Halifax up near Roanoke Rapids. So anyway, in 1972, the house was listed to the National Register of Historic Places. Okay, so Lee, let's put up picture number 1. This is just this picture that's from 1940. And as I said, the home's been through several renditions since it was built around 1800 or so. But in 1940, this picture was taken, and I should have put, I've got 2 pictures, 2 versions of the house actually, one from 1940 and one from 1936. So as soon as we get that one up on the screen, we'll share that with, and then we'll go on to the next one. We almost there, Lee? Okay, it's a fairly large, but wait for it to load up, he says. While we're waiting for it to load up, I've got another article here that appeared. There you go. So this is the way the house looked in 1940, and you can see it's got the front porch there. You see the wrought iron fence around the front, neatly manicured lawn. The people who lived in this home and occupied this home over the years were by and large, I won't say they were rich or necessarily even wealthy, but it was certainly well adjusted, let's put it that way, financially well adjusted. And so it seemed like over the years when the house would get remodeled, it would get remodeled with a little bit more elegance, if you will. But originally that porch on the front was not there. And we know that because the current owner, Mr. Tony Coates, has bought the house, I don't know, a year or so ago and been working on it. And one of the things he did was remove that front porch. And when he removed that front porch, it uncovered what's known as Palladian windows. And we'll get to a picture of those in a moment here. But that's what you're looking at here was the original part of the house that was built around 1800. And as I said, there's let's go on to picture number 2, Lee. This picture, and I should have put these in reverse order. This is actually from 1936, but it gives you a glimpse of that added on piece of the house back at the back there. And so anyway, as I said, the house has been remodeled several times. And now on to number 3, Lee, this is actually a better picture, I think. There you go. This was kind of taken from the back of the house here. And you can see there's a full chimney there on the back. But that back part was what they disassembled completely, remodeled it, put it all back together again, pretty much as it was originally. That was the intent, to restore it back to its original condition. But that part of the house, that back part, is believed to have been built sometime in the 1790s. And it was sitting on a nearby property. So they literally put it on a trailer of some sort and moved it and attached it to this house. So there's some very old property here. Okay, Lee, let's go to item number 4 if we could. You know, the history of the Dorchester area can be traced way, way back. As I said, this house was built in 1800. And there's a lot of history. There was people in the area even before this house was built. There was landowners back in the late 1700s. But very, very soon after the house was built, Dorchester began to grow. And it's really surprising how much growth there has been at that little area over the years. But what you're looking at here is a voting precinct result from their Weekly Standard, which was a Raleigh newspaper in 1850. And what it was doing was listing the voting results from area communities in this part of the state. You see there Arringtons, Collins, Dorches, Ricks, Mannings, Coopers, Servants, Vicks, Oldfields, Nashville. These are all little communities that were in the area back in the 1850s. And you see Dorches there, and it lists across the top of the people who were running. And I don't know who any of these people were, but it looks like whoever Mr. Reed was won the election pretty handily, as it turns out. But anyway, again, 1850, there was at least, according to this, at least 58 people in Dorchester that were old enough to vote and eligible to vote. My guess is they were all white men. No women were allowed to vote in 1850, and certainly no African Americans were allowed to vote. But pretty good showing of those from a very small community at that time. Okay, Lee, let's go to number 5. By 1909, the Dorchester community had actually grown to the point where there was regular columns in several different newspapers, including the Nashville Graphic, of course. And this one was one of, it's called the Dorch Item, excuse me. And every week or so, it would have several items that were just talking about the events and the happenings, if you will, going on within the Dorchester community. This one, as I said, is dated June the 24th of 1909. And I won't read all of them, but one that kind of caught my eye was about middle way down there, highlighted yellow. It says, the recently organized baseball team of this place has played 5 games, won 3, tied 1, and lost 1. That is pretty good for Dorchester, isn't it? So in 1909, Dorchester had its own baseball team. And that's in addition to the Dorchester School had, I'm sure, a baseball team. You know, in the early 1900s, baseball was king around here. And so it was pretty interesting to find out that Dorchester had their own baseball team in 1909. Before I get too much further to this, there's a couple more notes I had made here about the Dorch home in the area. I misspoke earlier. Dorch actually died in 1831. And then John H. Griffin bought the house in let me get my glass on so I can read this little bitty small print here. I made myself some notes. John H. Griffin bought the house in 1889, paid $5,000 for the property, which consisted of the house and 123 acres of land. Can you imagine buying 123 acres of Nash County land anywhere for $5,000 now? It wouldn't happen. Says the Flew Ellen, that's F-L-U, the Flew Ellen family seems to have been one of the first to settle in the area. The family is reported to have received a land grant from the King of England. Flew Ellen was later shortened to F. Ellen and later was shortened to just Ellen. Other families on the scene in the early days were the Gay family, the Coley family, the Proctor family, Bozeman, Marshburn, Vick, Bunn, Dunn, Melton, Westry, Robinson, and Harper. Bob Melton, the first Rocky Mountain barbecue king, grew up in Dorchester. How about that? I never knew that. So the church at Dorchester had a most unusual beginning. About 1889, a group of men met in the old Dorch Gin House and organized a debating society. As things went on, and by the way, women were not allowed to even join this little secret club, if you will, this debating society. But that was okay. The women got their own little gathering together and they started their own little prayer meeting service. But eventually the men who started the debating society and the women who had the prayer meetings got together and formed a church. On June 25th, 1893, Mr. Barkley, together with a preacher Sledge, met the people in a high school building and a church was organized. In August of 1893, the Farmers Alliance gave a lot adjoining its building to the church for a building site. The building committee was established, and by 1913 the church was built. a new sanctuary was begun, and they had to take the old building down and build a new one. So it says the old building was dismantled in 1933, with services reverting back to the school temporarily. By 1934, the rebuilding was underway, and by 1936, the Deutsches Church was back in operation. It goes on to say, Deutsches had a school, of course, that we've talked about before, from 1897, 1898, 1901, called the Deutsch Academy. W.O. Dunn was the principal the first 2 years. Deutsches had a second school building after using the Farmers Alliance building as a school for some years. Following Deutsch Academy, the school became a public school. So I'm not quite sure where this Farmers Alliance building was located, but I think I've located both of the schools, and ironically, if my information is correct, both of those original schools are still standing, and we'll get to that a little bit later on in the show. Okay, so let's move on, Lee. Where did we stop at? Item number, what was that? That was number 5? Okay, let's go on to item number 6 then. By 1918, this article appeared in the Rocky Mount Telegram, July 23rd, 1918. Entertainment at Deutsches a success. Through the efforts of the Sons and Daughters of Liberty of Rocky Mount, nearly $50 was realized to carry on the work of the Red Cross Auxiliary at Deutsches. The Sons and Daughters gave a splendid entertainment at the Deutsch Academy on Friday night last, and the total receipts was $47.50, all of which went to benefit of the Red Cross at Deutsches. The many present heartily enjoyed the excellent and amusing program rendered, and the event was a decided success. Mr. Archie Nunn of this city was one of the principals in the entertainment. Several other amateur performers from the city took part in the program. So the Sons and Daughters of Liberty, in case you're not familiar with that organization, it dates back to the days of the Revolutionary War. And it was a very patriotic group who met and organized, had fundraisers and so forth. But the whole goal, the whole focus of the Sons and Daughters of Liberty was the freedom and the patriotism that was so richly deserved after the American Revolution. Okay, so let's move on, Lee. That was number 6. Number 7, the Rocky Mount Telegram did this feature story in 2003. Now, I'm jumping way forward here, I know, but I'm doing this because I wanted to show some pictures to you here. Number 1, on the left, first of all, let me just tell you, this was the Telegram's feature story covered a span from 1954 up through the 1960s. And it says, you read the headline there, it says, "Building a Dream from an Old Country Schoolhouse." Okay? On the left-hand side, it says First Smith's Grocery Store, 1954, which was originally the old Deutsches Schoolhouse. Okay? So this is where Mr. Smith, Mr. Sherwood Smith, began Smith's Red and White in this little wooden building right here. And of course later, 1957 or so, that brick building on the right you see was the next store that became the operational point for Mr. S.B. Smith, and that became Smith's Red and White in later years. You see here, it's still just S.B. Smith. I'm not exactly sure of when it happened, but at some point, the red and white, of course, was a chain, and that allowed super small markets to get better buying power. They could buy in quantity, for example. They could deal with bigger suppliers and warehouses and so forth. So it was advantageous to join up with this red and white chain, if you will. So anyway, getting back to this building on the left here, as I said, that was the original old Deutsches Schoolhouse. And I've got a zoom in. Lee, let's go to number 8 because this is a zoom in. It's a little bit better shot anyway. It's the same picture you're seeing on your left, and again, it just says First Smith's Grocery Store, 1954. This is not a great picture. I apologize. I'm going to show you a better looking picture in a little bit later on in the show of this same building because it's still standing today. And lastly, from this same article, Lee, number 9. And again, this is the same image we were just looking at in the original picture, but this was, you see S.B. Smith Groceries and General Merchandise. And the caption reads, S.B. Smith Groceries and General Merchandise, cinder block store with processing addition to the left, 1957 and 1960s. So from the original wooden building, that building was moved That wooden building was actually put on some kind of cart or some kind of trailer, and it was literally moved to another farm not too far down the road, and we'll show you that in a moment. And then this concrete building here was built, and that became the new Smith's Red and White store. So moving on, Lee, let's go to number, that was number 8. Let's go to number 9. I'm sorry, that was 9. Let's go to number 10. This is now that same building that was the original Deutsch Schoolhouse, which later became the first store for Smith's Red and, well, it's SB Smith. I don't want to say Smith's Red and White, because when it was first started, it was not Smith's Red and White. It was just SB Smith's store. But this was the building, the original building. The building now sits on the property of Miss Dorothy Brown, and I had the pleasure of going to see Miss Brown this week. We had a nice visit. She gave me a tour of the farm. This farm dates back well over 150 years. In fact, the house she lives in now, the old family home place, she told me she thought was built somewhere around 160 years ago, and it's been added on to over the years, so it's not the same house that it was, but the main original part of the home is still standing. But there's a lot of history here. And this old building here, originally, of course, you see on the left and the right, it's now got her father, she said, built these overhangs and that front porch on it. And it's been used for storage over the years. But that's the same store. It was moved, as I said, to this location. And Lee, let's go on and go to the next picture, because she let me go inside of it. I didn't want to press my luck and ask for too much access, but she graciously said, "Would you like to see inside?" And I said, "Absolutely." So we went in. I just kind of opened doors, stepped in, and took my phone and took a picture of the roof, of the ceiling, I mean. And I could just picture this being an old country store back in the early 1900s. A school, excuse me, and then later a store in the early 1950s. But it just has that feel as being an old country store. And so the next picture, if you could, Lee, let's go ahead and get that. And this is actually, I think, a picture of inside what was, at the time that it was a store, was the store office, which I think would be number, there you go. And she apologized. She said, "Look, it's full of junk. I'm sorry it's so junk." I said, "Don't worry about it. It's just neat to me to go back and visit these old buildings, these old properties." But that was the original office, she said, when this building was a store. And so I think one more, Lee, in this group, before we take our first commercial break tonight. This building, when it was moved, part of the foundation, if you will, was actually railroad ties. And if you look, you can see the end of one railroad tie there in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. And then to the left of that, you see another railroad tie. And of course, it's sitting on cinder blocks. But that was some country engineering there, is what that was. Railroad ties and cinder blocks. And they got it level, and I'm sure it's secure. I have no doubt about that. The thing probably weighs many, many tons. But it was a neat trip to go out there. I just had a nice visit with Miss Brown. She was very accommodating, and I really appreciate her allowing us to go out there and see the property. And there's an old smokehouse out there where the hams were hung, salted hams and so forth were cured. It's a neat little journey back in time there. Okay, we went past our first time for our first commercial break, so let's go ahead and do that now. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about the Dorchester area, some of the businesses that were prevalent there over the years, and show you some more pictures. So don't go anywhere, folks. We'll be right back with more Wayback Wednesday.
I'm Daniel Moss, owner of Cornerstone Funeral Home, and I'd like to invite you and your family to give our family an opportunity to serve you in your time of need. And we offer a full line of funeral services, everything from visitations to graveside services, to cremations on site with a live crematory, as well as a banquet hall to meet the catering needs of our families that we serve. We offer catering service. We offer refreshments prior to visitations and services of our family. And we want to invite you to come and experience the difference here at Cornerstone Funeral Home.
There's a main nerve that leaves your back that goes into your hip and goes down your leg. It's called the sciatic nerve. A back injury can put pressure on that nerve, causing pain, numbness, tingling. Chiropractors can actually help that. At the Hammer Chiropractic Center on Sunset, we know exactly what to do. We have very good relationships with the doctors in Rocky Mount. We like to co-manage people's care. Some medications may help us do our jobs, and our jobs may help their medications work better.
Are you looking for the perfect space for your business in Rocky Mount? Discover the individual offices available on the 4th floor of the HealthView Capitol building in downtown Rocky Mount. These offices provide a professional environment with stunning views, ample natural light, and modern amenities in a secure environment. Join a community of thriving businesses and elevate your company to new heights. Rent includes utilities and Wi-Fi, and for an additional fee, you can have access to the building's gym. Schedule a tour today by calling Leanne Wester at 252-977-1616, extension 1012.
We're back. If you're just tuning in, we're talking about Dorchester tonight. You know, I live in that area. I love it. It's a great community. It's just a good place to live and to raise a family. We've been out in the area now since about 2002, and I really enjoy living out there. Got great. It's a great community. I put it that way. Okay, Lee, let's jump back into it. We were talking about the Brown Farm and the old original schoolhouse being out there. As I said, Miss Brown was really nice, very accommodating to us, and let us basically have free run of the place for the 45 minutes to an hour so we were out there. But anyway, let's go on, Lee, to the next one. I think it's going to be item number 15, am I right? Or 14? I forgot where we stopped. I think it's 14 where we need to go to now. I think we stopped at 13 actually. And I'm not even sure which picture this is. I made my notes here, just very, very brief. Okay, that was the last one we shown, I think, Lee. There you go. This actually was from the Rocky Mount Telegram, and no, I'm sorry, this is from the National Graphic from 1955, I think it was, or 1950. And it was just another picture of the house from a different view. And the reason I put this in here, there's been no less than 4 feature stories, if you will, made over the years about the old Dorch home, or for the people who are not familiar with it by this name, the John F. Griffin home. But as I said, it's been remodeled several times. Tony Coates that's got it now is undergoing quite a bit of renovation on it. He's been working on it steadily. I've not been back in it. I was in the home several months ago, and maybe a year ago now. Time flies so fast. But he's doing a remarkable job trying to bring the house back to its original glory, if you will. And he's doing a great job of doing that. So let's move on, Lee, to the next item there. And I think it's number, what you got, 16 now? Or 15? There we go. Okay. I mentioned earlier that there was a lot of different businesses that were located in the Dorchester community, and certainly John F. Griffin was one. He had a store there on the corner across the street from the house. But I was really surprised, just in 1955 alone, I found 11 business listings, newspaper ads and so forth, for businesses that were operating in the Dorchester area. Now, not all were right there at the intersection, obviously, but again, I was just really surprised. And you see here, this is the John F. Griffin store listing, and it says Dorchester Community. This place now is the site of Pam and Charles Mullen. They run their custom home building offices out of this building here now. Okay, let's move on then. The next one I think will be at number 16. And this is actually, all of these are from 1955. George L. Ellen had a store. Also a gas station, well, one and the same, store/gas station. But you see he sold work, clothes, shoes, Ball brand boots, dress shoes, Planter fertilizers, Sherwin-Williams paint, Gulf products. Oldest supply store in Dorchester, it says here. Part of that family, the Ellen family, I think is still somewhere in the area. I'm not sure if they live in Dorchester or not. But that's one of the original families here, obviously, and it goes way back many years in the Dorchester area. I saw several references to the Ellen family over the years, and George L. Ellen in particular. Okay, let's move on then. As I said, these are all from 1955. I just was scanning through one year to see what I could come up with, just to see what kind of businesses were advertising in local papers. R.G. Kahn was another local businessman in the area. Saw several references to him. You see there, he was advertising this ad, fertilizers. And he was, again, a lot of these ads just said Dorchester's community. In 1955, Dorchester was not officially a town yet. It was still just a little community. And so a lot of these business owners would put as an address just the Dorchester community. And of course, it wasn't hard to find anybody in Dorchester that was in business. If you got to the crossroads of Halifax and Highway 43, you couldn't go too far without finding somebody. So, or at least somebody to ask anyway if you couldn't find the place you're looking for. Okay, let's move on then. I'm not sure which one we're at here now. My notes got hosed up a little bit earlier, so we'll go through these. Smith's Garage, general repairs, gas and electric welding. Don't wait, get your repairs done now. Tractors, farm machinery, and trucks repaired. And you see again, Dorchester's community. I had a real nice talk this week too, very brief, but a nice chat nonetheless with Bruce Smith of Smith's Red and White. I had a chat too with a few other current and former residents and business people affiliated with George's in one time or another. And everyone seemed to, have just a real good feeling about the town and the community and the businesses that have been there over the years. And I should have asked Bruce, was he related to this? I'm not sure if he was or not. Bruce, if you're watching, you can feel free to call and enlighten me if this was some of your family. 407-1111 is the number. But anyway, I just thought it was interesting that there were so many different businesses that were listed in local. Some of these were Rocky Mount Telegram, some were the Nashville Graphic. But you see, there were several little businesses operating in and around the Dorchester community in again, 1955. Okay, Lee, let's move on to the next one if we could then. Sidney T. Jones, or S.T. Jones, as I saw advertised quite often. It was a cotton ginner and, of course, a cotton buyer. And you see, again, advertising in the Dorchester community. One of the things I saw, too, was interesting, and we've talked before on previous shows about quite often the wives of these prominent business people would often be identified as Mrs. So-and-so by her husband's initials. And so I saw several articles referencing Mrs. S.T. Jones in various social circles, various clubs, various events that were either hosted by women, primarily for women. And I saw the same thing, by the way, about Mrs. J.F. Griffin, for example, in later years. But it's quite common, I guess you'd say, that a lot of local business owners, their wives would be, instead of their given name, they'd be referred to by their husband's initials. In this case, like I said, I saw many articles referencing Mrs. S.T. Jones. Okay, Lee, let's move on then. I think there's a couple more of this listing. W.D. Snipes, there you see there, Esso Products. I read one article that said over the years there had been as many as 4 different gas stations in the Dorchester community, and I don't think that was including the 2 that are there now, right there by the I-95 off-ramps. In other words, I think it's a Circle K or Kangaroo maybe, and then of course the new Dixie across the street. But I saw where there were, over the years, at least 4 different gas stations in the Dorchester community. My guess is they were combination gas station convenience stores. I'm not saying they were a sole, like a typical gas station was, but in any case, you could buy gas at a couple, 3, maybe 4 different places over the years in Dorchester community. Okay, let's move on then. This one I think is another ad from that same time frame. Yep, W.E. House Groceries. Shop, work, wagon bodies, trailers, Atlantic Gas and Oil. Again, the Dorchester community. to find so many different businesses listed in 1 year, keep in mind, we're talking about 1955, this is just 1 year, and all of these businesses were operating, and you think to yourself, where in the world were they at? Where were all these businesses operating at the same time in the same community that is literally today little more than a crossroads? But, as I said, Deutsches had its own little, we've talked many times in the past on this show about areas of commerce. And Rocky Mount all over the city had areas of commerce. We've talked about them, you know, being from down Falls Road, out Cokie Road, certainly downtown Rocky Mount and the streets adjoining Main Street, Washington Street and so forth. But there was an area of commerce, a very vibrant, very well-established area of commerce in the Deutsches community in the 1950s. And, you know, what happened to them all, it's anybody's guess. There's not a whole lot of business there now, but what is there I think is doing very well. I think Bruce Smith's a testament to, I bet it's doing very well in the Deutsches community. But it was amazing to me that there were so many different ones, I guess is the point. Okay, Lee, where are you at on your chart? I've lost track again. 22, okay. Okay, well let's go ahead and put it on the screen for our viewers then. This was interesting to me, and I had a little chuckle here. You see the headline, burglars take big safe and little cash. A 700-pound safe was stolen from S.B. Smith's store in Deutsches Saturday night, Sheriff Glenn Womble has reported. It contained less than $10 in silver and the store's record. Womble said that the safe was rolled from the store's office to the back and loaded. It has not been found. Entrance was gained to the building through a front window. The investigation is continuing. This occurred, by the way, December 15, 1955 was when the ad appeared. So the actual burglary, if you will, took place, I guess, a day or so prior to this ad appearing in the paper. But can you imagine the thief's disappointment at lugging around a 700-pound safe, breaking it open, only to discover there's only $10 in silver coins inside? What a disappointment. And just to show that crime does not pay, Lee, item number 23, if you would. Literally a week later, there were 2 arrests made. It says 2 arrests have been made in connection with a safe robbery at S.B. Smith's store at Deutsches on December 11th. Carl Jr. Vaughn, 31, and Walter James McKeel, 35, both of Norfolk, Virginia, were arrested last Thursday in connection with the robbery. And it goes on to say Smith's store was entered through a front window on December 11th, and a 700-pound safe rolled from the office and loaded on a 1951 Ford. The safe, which contained less than $10 in silver and the store's record, was found about 3 miles from the store in a tobacco barn. The records were recovered. So it says other arrests are expected to be made in connection with the theft. Womble said he and SBI agent Bill Wilson are investigating officers. Again, you know, a dumb thief, you know, come all the way down here from Norfolk, Virginia, broke into a store, stole a 700-pound safe, and got $10 for the trouble. and a jail term, I'm sure, after that, too. Okay, let's get back on the schedule of the commercials, Lee. I see it's time for our second commercial break, so let's go ahead and take that. When we come back, we've got a few more pictures to share with you, a few more neat stories about the Deutsches area, and just some really interesting growth that took place over the years. Don't go anywhere, folks. We'll be right back with more Wayback Wednesday. Take it away, Lee.
I'm Daniel Moss, owner of Cornerstone Funeral Home, and I'd like to invite you and your family to give our family an opportunity to serve you in your time of need. And we offer a full line of funeral services, everything from visitations to graveside services to cremations on site with a live crematory, as well as a banquet hall to meet the catering needs of our families that we serve. We offer catering service. We offer refreshments prior to visitations and services of our family. And we want to invite you to come and experience the difference here at Cornerstone Funeral Home.
There's a main nerve that leaves your back that goes into your hip and goes down your leg. It's called the sciatic nerve. A back injury can put pressure on that nerve, causing pain, numbness, tingling. Chiropractors can actually help that. At the Hammer Chiropractic Center on Sunset, we know exactly what to do. We have very good relationships with the doctors in Rocky Mount. We like to co-manage people's care. Some medications may help us do our jobs, and our jobs may help their medications work better.
Are you looking for the perfect space for your business in Rocky Mount? Discover the individual offices available on the 4th floor of the HealthView Capitol building in downtown Rocky Mount. These offices provide a professional environment with stunning views, ample natural light, and modern amenities in a secure environment. Join a community of thriving businesses and elevate your company to new heights. Rent includes utilities and Wi-Fi, and for an additional fee, you can have access to the building's gym. Schedule a tour today by calling Leanne Wester at 252-977-1616, extension 1012.
The church has been very instrumental in the history of Dorchester since the very beginning. I saw several references to events that were either sponsored by the church or took place in the church, and including numerous weddings and funerals, of course, over the years. But in 1955, in addition to all those advertisements we just shared with you before the break, I ran across this article that talks about the church being the center of life in Dorchester. And it had a picture, and the picture quality is terrible. I apologize. But Lee, if you would, put up number 24 for our viewers. I'd heard this story, and we've talked about it in past shows, in fact, that when Cornwallis, General Cornwallis of the British Army, was going through his tromp through North Carolina, he came out by the new Rocky Mount Wilson Airport out there, came and turned on Halifax Road, came across Layman's Ferry Bridge area there, came on down, jumped on Halifax Road, continued on down Halifax, I should say, crossed over the creek there at Stony Creek where Halifax Road intersects with Hunter Hill Road, and he and his troops camped there for the night. And there's a rock there. I remember this story, we talked about this not too long ago, in fact. There's a rock on the side of the creek that's got a carved out, if you will, indention into rock, and the rumor has it, or the legend has it, that Cornwallis had one of his men chisel out that hole in the rock to feed his horse, or to give his horse water, one of the two, if not both. And so that rock is still there, by the way. It's on Stony Creek. It's not too far from the intersection of Halifax Road and Hunter Hill Road. But anyway, this article was a really neat article, and it talked a little bit about the church history and the importance of the church in the development of Dorchester as a community. But it goes on to talk about, and again, this is in 1955, now keep that in mind, because I'm not going to read this whole thing, but I want to read a couple of quick sentences here. It says, at first served by a single general store, the community now supports 3 stores, a garage, a truck line, 3 service stations, and a cotton gin. A sawmill is operated by Lyman Bozeman. So again, this sleepy little community that you wouldn't think would have had much of a business history anyway, in 1955 was actually booming along pretty good. I've never heard, prior to reading this article, I never knew that there was a sawmill anywhere near Dorchester, and I still don't know where it was located, but in any case, there was a sawmill in the Dorchester community at some point. And so again, it just goes to show that things change. Progress sometimes creates new things, sometimes takes old things away, and so change is inevitable, as the old saying goes. But it was just interesting to me to find out that there was so much going on in the mid-1950s in the Dorchester community. Okay, let's move on to number 25. This is just a story again that talks about Cornwallis when he camped at the site near Dorchester. And it's a real short article. It says, legend has it that Lord Cornwallis, leader of British troops during the Revolutionary War, camped near Dorchester during the final period of his campaign against American colonies. The legend is supported, in fact, by a huge hollowed out rock that is said to have been used as a feeding place for Cornwallis's horse. It is located at a point a short distance southwest of Dorchester. The rock is about waist high, and a hollowed out hole in the top surface will hold about a gallon of feed. Traces of an inscription which indicated that the rock was for the special purpose of holding feed for his lordship horse may still be seen. Now again, this is 1955 when this article was written. It says, old timers in Dorchester say it was legible in their childhood, but time and weather have worn away the words, and the letters ALLIS are all that are left today. Some say that Cornwallis was hiding in this secluded spot while others believe it was selected as a natural campsite because of its seclusion and the nearness of drinking water for the horses. There's another fable related to the Cornwallis legend that pertains to one Colonel Hunter, a wily rebel who harassed and embarrassed Cornwallis. Hunter Hill Road continues the name of this Revolutionary War officer who, when about to be apprehended, had himself covered with the muck from the creek bottom, leaving only his nose sticking out, and in this way he escaped capture. Hunter Hill Road was named after this gentleman. His name was Thomas Hunter, and Hunter Hill Road was named after him. Okay, Lee, all that was 1955. Now let's jump forward to 1958, just 3 short years later, and the Rocky Mount Telegram did a nice spread again on the town of Dorchester. Community, again. It was not a town in 1958, but you can see it's changed quite a bit there. Little signpost says Dorchester. Off to your right there, that's S.B. Smith's store there. Across the street, there's the Ellen store, the white building back there in the back, SO station there. To your left off the screen there, I believe that would have, that time would have been John F. Griffin's store. And you see there's very little going on in this particular picture. But again, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 businesses right there at the intersection in 1958. And the headline for this article was Dorchester's Crossroads Center of Activity. Okay, so let's move on, Lee. This same little article here had some neat pictures. Number 27, this, many of you may remember this, was called the Community House. And a few years ago, literally just a couple of years ago in fact, this was moved. It was relocated over behind Smith's Red and White, and now is the Smith's Pavilion, or as the locals affectionately refer to it as, the Dorchester Event Center. And by the way, it's a beautiful facility. Bruce has done an outstanding job. If you've not had an opportunity to go inside this place since it's opened up, you need to do so. It's great for all kind of special events. I've had the privilege of being there on 3 different occasions recently. And it's just a great venue for all kind of weddings, birthday parties, reunion of all sorts. It's just a wonderful place to hold an event. And again, it's a testament to the vision of a man that saw this building that I guess wanted to be moved, needed to be moved. Someone wanted it moved. Bruce bought it and moved it over there, and it's turned into something that the town of Dorchester can be really proud of. It's a very nice facility. Okay, number 28, Lee. This picture really threw me for a loop because the caption reads, "New construction. The Dorchester community is building this tennis court and skating rink." Now this was in that same article, it was actually September of 1958, September 14th of 1958. I don't ever recall hearing about a tennis court nor a skating rink in and around Dorchester. If anybody remembers that, give us a call, 407-1111. I have no idea where it was or how long it existed. It was being built, according to this, in 1958, somewhere in the Dorchester community. I don't know where. And finally, this same little spread of information here in this article from September of 1958, item number 29, Lee. This was a shot inside S.B. Smith's store, and that's the man himself on the left, Mr. Sherwood Smith. And it says, Merchant S.B. Smith sells a farmer supplies from his store at the Dorchester Crossroads. And this, of course, would have been the concrete building by this time. He had moved out of the little wooden building. That building had been moved over to the Brown Farm, and this would have been in the concrete block building to the right now of the new store. Okay, number 30, Lee. 1964, this ad appeared in a Nashville graphic for Stump Jones. I remember Stump Jones being in business out there on 43 Highway, a little west of the Dorchester community. In fact, the ad at the bottom says located between Dorchester and Red Oak. I think both Dorchester and Red Oak claim Stump Jones as being a business in their community. But I think it was probably equal distance from each one of them, so they were probably both justified in claiming it. Number 31, Lee. In 1968, yet another spread story was done on the old Dorch home, as you see here. As I said, there was at least 4 different articles done over the years about this Dorch home. I'm not going to go, there's a lot of detail here that we've already talked about. I will say this, there's been a little bit of discrepancy between different articles I've read. I've seen some that state that William Dortch built this house. I've seen some that state James Dortch built this house. William Thorpe did have a son named William T. Thorpe, who was an attorney. And so I don't know if the James Dortch and the original or the senior William Thorpe might have been the same individual. That's possible that his middle name was William and the first name was James, or vice versa. But in any case, I have seen that the home listed both ways. It was built by William Dortch, and that it was built by James Dortch. So anyway, there's another feature story there about the Dortch home. 1970, number 32. We've actually shared this picture before. The gentleman seated there is named Worth D. Snipes. And he he actually set up a junior rifle club for young kids in the Dorchester community and taught them gun safety and so forth, took them out shooting and different things. He was a very interesting individual. He was a writer. He wrote daily in a journal. He was actually, don't know if it ever got published, but he was writing a book. He was a coin collector, had an interesting life. He was also handicapped and wheelchair bound. But he was instrumental in having this junior rifle club established and running in 1970 in Dorchester. Okay, Lee, number 33, yet another feature story on the Dortch house. This one was in the Rocky Mount Telegram in 1982. And you see there it's got the main front of the house there. This is the way it looked most recently before Tony Coates got possession of the home, and like he took that front porch off. And when he did, those Palladian windows became very evident. So let's go ahead and leave number 34. This is just a shot of the house itself from this same article. A little bit of a blowed up image, if you will. And you can't tell it because the porch is there, but those windows across the bottom have an arch to them, and their arch is covered up by that porch. Number 35, Lee, this picture actually shows how the windows looked. This is called a Palladian window because it's got the arch on the top and the little windows on either side of it, either side of the main window, I should say. And it says the Dortch house is one of 3 places left in the United States that features Palladian windows such as this. That's how rare they are. And number 36, Lee, this is actually a picture from inside the house, and here you can see the arch in top of the window. And now that that front porch is gone, if you ride by this house, you can actually see the arch of these windows. It was been there all along, just the porch was covering it up. But when Tony took that porch down, you can now see this arch in top of this window here. Another neat feature of that house is a corn crib out back, number 37, Lee. And this actually dates back, some people say it's older than the house itself. It's certainly around the same time, 1800 or older. Sadly, this building is about to fall down now. It looks terrible shape compared to these pictures here. Number 38, Lee, 1990, the Rocky Mount Telegram did another story about Smith's red and white. And by this time it was Smith's red and white. And that's Bruce there on the left and his son Derek on the right. We're almost out of time. One more, Lee. Rocky Mount Telegram 1990 also featured this gentleman, Mr. Wayne Tyson, that ran Tyson Upholstery. He has since passed away, of course, sadly. And I think we've got a couple more real quickly. We'll just go ahead. There's Smith's red and white today. Great little shop. And that building there in the yellow circle is actually the other Dorchester School. That's at the, hard to see it because the trees are all the way around it. But if you're coming from Rocky Mount on Bimini Road or Highway 43, just before you get to Tom Betts Highway, look off to your left in the trees over there and you'll see this building. And Bruce tells me that there was actually a furniture store there at one time back in the early 1960s. They sold furniture, and I think Bruce said he and his family bought a mattress from there, in fact. I want to do some more research on this building. I've not yet been able to get very much beyond what Bruce said he remembered about it. And so as I find out more, I'll share it with you in future shows. Folks, that's going to do it for us tonight. We ran slam out of time. Thank you for tuning in tonight. have a great week. Take care of yourselves. Be kind to one another. And we'll see you next week with more Wayback Wednesday. Good night.